Hi, my name is Miro Postovic. I'm going to talk to you today about Bach flowers. This is our version of the Bach flowers remedies kits. Now, this is one of these really woo things that people talk about in the natural health space. So what happened was in the early 1900s, there was a guy named Dr. Edward Bach, and Dr. Bach the guy was not a joke. He was a medical doctor. And he was also a homeopath. He also developed this thing in homeopathy called the no-sodes, right? Now we have this thing for a long time, up until about 15 years ago. Conventional medicine believed that bacteria was just bad for you, it was just a universally bad thing. And now we've learned in the last 15, 20 years that there's bacteria really coexists in your body and help you digest food and serve all kinds of functions, right? So there's something that's been recently developed. They're called fecal transplants. I call them poop transplants, where they take someone that's very, very healthy digestively, and they will take some of their feces, water down, and in a very uncomfortable way introduce to someone that's had a C. diff infection. C. diff infections are impossible to treat, and they're just so hard on the body, and people don't recover from them. So they found is, again, this is in the last couple of years, that doing these fecal transplants or poop transplants will restore a very ill person back to incredibly healthy, like almost instantly. So I kind of bring that up, where Edward Bach was able to develop a homeopathic version called no-sodes, called them the bowel no-sodes, where he actually took the bacteria from poop and made them into remedies to treat specific illnesses using homeopathy. So here's a guy who's a medical doctor. He developed this fecal transplant 100 years ahead of anybody else, right? And what happened was he got diagnosed with a malignant tumor on his spleen. Now remember, this is in the 1900s, right? I mean, it was pretty much a death sentence. And the guy's a doctor, he knows his stuff. They pretty much said, you know what? Go home, put your affairs in order, you're gonna be dead in a few weeks, right? So instead of doing that, his theory was this: we're all exposed to bacteria and fungus and disease all the time. So a healthy person always has the ability to fight this stuff back. Because what is blocking people from being healthy? And his theory was it's gotta be emotional blockages, right? It's gotta be an emotional thing. So his premise was that if you can cure someone's emotional state or give them a way to handle it, then that person will restore to physical health, right? And it sounds like a kind of an out there woo idea, but it really isn't. I mean, I had a client come in, I'm a homeopath, and a lady came in and she was really, really high strung, really intense. She was gonna go in for back surgery. I'll never forget her. She's walking like this, and her shoulders are in her fists were clenched, and her teeth were clenched, and she's like, yeah, I'm going in for back surgery, my back is sore. And after being with her for the hour consult, I was doing this. And I said to her, look, I said, I'm not gonna override your doctors, because I'm not a doctor, I'm a homeopath. I said, but let me give you some suggestions. Take some remedies for stress and tension. Go see an acupuncturist, go get massages every day. Like, learn meditation, yoga, whatever you can to bring down your tension level. Because from my observation, she didn't have a back problem, she had a tension problem. I mean, I was just in her presence, I was doing this. And within a month, her surgeon agreed to postpone surgery. Within a month, she had relieved most of her pain and her discomfort, and she's actually improving quite a bit. And it's such an interesting thing that these emotional states are so profoundly effective. So let me go back. So Dr. Bach said, you know what? Going through the literature, he found certain flowers had some affinity to certain emotional states, right? He also, using his own intuition. And again, if it was some guy that was, waving a sign in the street, you kind of wouldn't pay attention to him. But because this guy was so profoundly intelligent and gifted and understood stuff and could see stuff other people didn't see, you kind of got to take it with a grain of salt. So what he did is he chose 38 different remedies of flowers, and he formulated one, which is a mix of 5 of them, called Rescue Remedy. And you'll find Rescue Remedy in stores everywhere. I have found from my own observations, again, we sell the products, and I've known hundreds of practitioners, and most of them do some good and they help. One of the practitioners I work with quite a bit, she's been a therapist for 50 years, and the lady's amazing. She's such a good therapist, knows her stuff. And she flat out says, she goes, by adding Bach flower remedies to my therapy, I'm getting more progress with people in less than a year than I would get in 20 years of therapy or something. She goes, it's been a game changer for my practice in terms of moving people from a state of unhealthy lifestyles and unhappy and everything else, and just getting them all the way over to where they're being productive and happy and positive, and affecting their communities in a positive way. So that's one example. Another example I have is a lady no longer practices, and she was a wizard with the flowers. I had a case that I was stuck on. It was a young woman. She had a 14-year-old child. She had just gotten pregnant. It turns out her husband had relapsed back into drug use. So here she is. She's got a 14-year-old. She's 6 months pregnant. And the husband just like gambled away all their life savings, ran up debt, ran off with some other girl, drug abuse. All of a sudden he went from being a doting father to the 14-year-old to being absent and random, and just her whole life is spiraling out of control. So she's in the hospital. She's 6 months pregnant. She's having early contractions. They can't stop the contractions. You don't want to be born 3 months early. You really don't. I'm trying to give her different remedies. I wasn't getting anywhere in the case. And I call up this friend of mine, the practitioner, who's a wizard with the flowers, right? And she ran me off. She said, look, she goes, you need this flower for the impatience. You need this for that. And she kind of gave me this formula. And I said, you know what? I'll give it a try. So I made up a bottle of the formula, and I took it into the girl. She was in the hospital. They had her on the IV, they had her on the magnesium sulfate, trying to stop these contractions. And within like 5 minutes of taking this flower remedy, which is supposed to be basically just essences of flowers, contractions stopped. She calmed right down. She was taking the remedy for the rest of her pregnancy, had a healthy delivery, healthy baby, no issues. And it was such a big dramatic case, because I'd never seen anything respond like that. Because, you know, here and there, with homeopathy, you'll really hit someone's frequency and it'll change them like this. But I'd never seen anything as transformative as the Bach flower remedies, and I think they're very underutilized. But I think they're also very hard to do, because I think you have to have a certain mix of empathy to understand the emotional states, and have the ability to really kind of nuts and bolts it into a practical application. So I do think that if you have I'm gonna call it a portfolio of different alternative health things to try, I would say try to find a Bach flower practitioner that really has that insight, and it will be transformative. For myself, I'm really high strung, and I tend to have a problem with patience, as you can tell by I talk fast. And I use the impatience remedy quite a bit. I use the other ones for that. And it's been really, really helpful for me on a day-to-day basis. One of the fun things that we do is there's a remedy in the collection called Star of Bethlehem. And very often when I'm doing a homeopathic case with someone, I'll give them the Star of Bethlehem to bring out any suppressed emotions. And then from there, they can kind of figure out where they are, and it'll clear up the case. So, but I hope you've enjoyed this little introduction to the Bach flower remedies, because they are a lot of fun and they are very, very profound.